The big story right now down here in the Dominican Republic in Punta Cana is of a missing young lady who disappeared recently in Punta Cana, and search and rescue operations are underway. What I want to do in this video is give an up-to-date timeline as of 11:30, 12 o'clock noon Eastern / Atlantic on Monday, March 10th. I'll give you a full timeline of events as I understand it to this point. I want to talk a little bit about how I'm processing this, just my own emotions, if you will. I have sort of three that I'm working through that I hope will help you. And then lastly, I want to answer the question about what this says about safety in the Dominican Republic. Is it preventable? Is something like this preventable by resorts, by the government, by the police here? Is there more that could have been done? We'll talk about it. But let me give you a breakdown of the entire story here. This young lady, Sudiksha Konanki, is 20 years old. She's a student at the University of Pittsburgh. She lives in Chantilly, Virginia. She's an Indian citizen, but a U.S. permanent resident. And the events start like this. On March 3rd, 2025, so March 3rd, she arrived in Punta Cana with 5 female friends from the University of Pittsburgh for a spring break, like kids do at 20 years old. On Thursday, March 6th, early morning, we're talking 4 o'clock in the morning, she and her friends, along with some other individuals they met at a resort, went to the beach near the Rio Resort in Punta Cana. At 4:50 a.m., she was last seen walking on the beach. It's the last time she was reported walking on the beach. There were various descriptions of her, what she was wearing, what she had on her ears, descriptors of her for people to hopefully find her. At 5:55 a.m., 5 women and a man left the beach. Sudiksha, the woman that's now missing, and another man remained. And just before 10 o'clock that morning on Thursday, March 6th, the man who was with her was seen leaving the beach, and there was no sight of her, of Sudiksha, at the time. I hope I'm saying her name correctly. On March 6th at 4 o'clock p.m., so this all happened at 4 a.m. to about 10, all these movements, last seen at around 4:50. Her friends reported her missing when she failed to return to her room. So a solid 12 hours later is when people were like, wow, she hasn't gotten up, she's not around, what's going on? And they reported her missing to local authorities. From the search and the investigation, there's been a massive search underway. Dominican authorities initiated a search and rescue operations. They've deployed drones with different technologies on it. They've done helicopters. I've read reports where they're going through bushes and different growth area, like where there's growth and trees and everything else, multiple times to search for her. The local officials suggest that she may have drowned. This is kind of the latest, that she may have drowned after being caught by a large wave during an early morning swim. There's some talk about, did she go in the ocean in the early morning hours? Her family isn't on board with this theory at this time. They feel that her belongings, her phone, and other things were with her friends, which for her, as I read this, they find unusual. And that makes sense from the family's perspective. They filed a formal complaint imploring and hoping that authorities will investigate all possibilities, including kidnapping, foul play. I've even heard the father mention this could be a human trafficking situation, which we'll talk about. In Virginia, the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office, along with federal agencies like the FBI, the DEA, Homeland Security, all involved in this, along with the Indian Embassy here in the Dominican Republic. They're collaborating with the Dominican authorities in the ongoing investigation. And as of right now, she's still missing. Search efforts are still underway. They haven't stopped searching for her. And they're interviewing different people. They talked to the young man. They're trying to corroborate his story. They talk to the friends, or they're talking to the friends in many ways to figure out what their maritime search effort should look like. So they're trying to kind of pinpoint, like, okay, where was she exactly? And so they can pinpoint their search and see if they can find, if she did indeed drown, as has been reported, they can find her. A lot went through my mind on this, and I've gotten a ton of direct messages and emails from people, seeing as how I live here, I'm in Punta Cana. I talk a lot about not only life here, not only real estate here, but trending news when Marco Rubio visits or whatever. And this obviously is trending news. This is a very newsworthy story. I go through a few different things personally, and the first one easily is sadness. Sadness, fear, kind of maybe a mix of the two. You see this picture of this beautiful young lady, 20 years old, and it's like, my God, if the worst has happened, if she has indeed drowned, if she's no longer with us, oh, how does that not weigh on your heart as a human being, but maybe even, my kids aren't that age yet, as a parent, as somebody local, as somebody who walks those beaches, that fear, sadness, like, my God, as beautiful as nature can be, if that's indeed what happened, it could also swallow you up. And that is scary, that is sad, and I process that emotion of sadness. I'll be honest, there's an anger that I feel. I'm sure many of us do. It comes to me right away. This is like the inside coming out and saying it, but like, what are you doing as a young lady with maybe a kid you don't know? And again, this is just, you're reading the news. All this is late breaking. Like, this is all alleged. I want to be clear. I don't know any more than anybody else. I'm hopefully just capturing the timeline for you at this point in time as I upload this video. But what are you doing as a young lady at 4 a.m. on the beach alone or with friends, and then allowing yourself to be alone with this young man, or going in the ocean? You're at a party. Was she drinking? I don't know. But there's an anger. It's like, what are you doing? This could have been prevented if you just had fun, stayed in the resort, stayed with your friends, didn't separate from them. Anger. I'm sure many of us feel that. But then there's this sense of, I guess, guilt. For me, at least. I was talking to my wife about this earlier today. Like, we've all been 20, and we've all done things at 20 that probably aren't smart. There's a saying that I've heard that young people don't die from disease, they die from, let's say, bad decisions. I think the actual quote is they die from stupidity. And I had plenty of chances to be a victim to that. I can tell you times, I'm not proud of it, that as a young guy in my early 20s, late teens, I had a few, and I hopped in the car and drove home. I could tell you, my wife had an experience when she lived in La Romana in the late 2000s, before 2010. She went to a game. Is it the Tiger? Not Tigers. The Toros, the La Romana baseball team. I think it's whoever it is. I can't think of who it is right now. She went to that baseball game. Her and a friend turned a corner. A guy grabbed her friend's purse. My wife is more fight than flight, so like, she chased the guy and tried to grab at him and tried to hit him and all this stuff. Like, probably not the right decision in that moment. God knows what he could have done, but she survived it. I survived driving when I shouldn't have been driving. But I know a lot of people that didn't. I know a lot of people that died at young ages because they made the same decision I did, but they got away with it. So I feel guilty, probably maybe for being angry. Because like, as much as I want to say, what are you doing? I know I've been that age, and I know I've made these decisions, and I know I've done dumb things, and by the grace of God, I survived it. And Lord willing, I hope she did as well. So I feel a ton of guilt, I guess, for maybe, I don't know, I don't want to call it survivor's remorse, but for feeling anger, or for maybe in my mind, like, shaking it off. Look, as human beings, not shaking it off as if it's like, but like, oh my God, well, of course. Like, that's, as human beings, we want to know that a tragedy has accountability, or there's accountability for it, or there's a reason for it. If somebody dies of a heart attack in their 40s, we instantly want to go to like, well, they were obese, they didn't eat well, they had bad habits, they were heavy drinkers. If somebody gets cancer, lung cancer, instantly it's like, oh, they smoke. Well, that's why, because for us, it's like, okay, good. That won't happen to me because I don't do the thing that caused the tragedy. The times though, when something happens, like somebody dies of a heart attack and they are a marathon runner, they're healthy, they're vibrant, they don't smoke, they eat well, they have healthy habits. Or the time the person gets lung cancer or throat cancer and they haven't smoked a day in their life, those are the scary ones. Those are the ones that really, really scare us, that make us say, wait a minute, there's got to be something that person did to earn the consequence. Because if not, that means that it can just happen to me. And I think in this story, I feel guilty for being angry at her decision, because in that, I'm sort of blaming her in my mind when I do that. To be clear, I'm not blaming her. Whatever happened to her, she didn't deserve. That's not the point at all. But what I'm saying is being very honest, and I'm sure many of you can articulate this maybe a little bit better than I can, and you could drop it down below if you get me. If you don't, sorry. But my point is, Like, I want to point to something so that this won't happen to my kid. I can give my kid the direct warning of like, don't do that. And I don't know. We'll see what the story actually bears out, how much of this is true. Was there foul play? Was it just a freakish thing? Who knows? I don't know. But what I can tell you is I feel guilty for looking for a reason that this happened when it's just like, hey, it happened and it's a tragedy and it's an awful thing. But as human beings, we want to know. We want to know that there was a way to avoid it so that we can avoid it. It's probably the best way I can put it. So all of that said, the other part of this is I get a lot of DMs. I'm getting a lot of DMs with questions like, is this common? What's going on? This doesn't look good. This isn't good for DR. It's not safe there. See, this is what I'm talking about. Like, I get that one from especially people who message me frequently saying, Jamie, you're saying things, this is cool, but there's a bad side that you're not talking about. And people are really spiking a football that I think is way too goddamn early to be spiked on this young lady's situation, potential tragedy, who knows? And it bothers me. It bothers me because one, it's premature, and two, it has nothing to do with whether or not this country is safe. I thought about this. Look, I do believe that the Dominican Republic needs to place lifeguards on their beaches. At least the resorts do. They need to place lifeguards on their beaches. But I would never expect a lifeguard on the beach at 4 a.m, ever. Should police or security guards at a certain point, midnight, 1 o'clock, be patrolling the edges of the resorts and kicking people off the beach to go back to their room? Like, maybe. But there is a level of personal responsibility. Like, if I'm at a resort and I'm with my kids and I feel like going to sit at the end of the beach or the middle of the beach where waves aren't even touching it. Like, if a security guard told me on my vacation that I paid for that I can't go on the beach at 3 a.m, that would annoy me. That would annoy me. So I don't know that that's the answer either. I don't know that there's a way to have prevented whatever this might have been, other than the actions of the individuals involved, whatever that means. The young lady that's missing and any other people, if there is indeed foul play. One of the things floated, I believe, by this young lady's father was the possibility of human trafficking. And I understand where that comes from. I do. If I'm the father and I were faced with two scenarios, one is terrible scenarios. One is that she's drowned or killed or she's gone, never to be seen again. Or she's alive, but in a terrible situation like human trafficking. I'll be honest, I would choose the latter because there's at least some hope in the latter. I wouldn't want her to go through it. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying if faced with she's gone, no hope, or a slimmer of hope, I would say I take the slimmer of hope. As I say that, knowing what happens in that slimmer of hope, I definitely can see why some would say, I wouldn't hope for that. I would just hope, she's gone and at peace. I would never wish that on her because the chances of getting her out of that are very slim. So I get it. We can debate that. I don't want to debate that. Never mind. People can have their opinions. I have mine. But that might be very selfish on my part. Maybe it's selfish on the father's part, but I understand the selfishness. I just want my baby back. That's all he wants. I understand why he's looking at, hey, we need further investigation. This looks weird to me. I believe there's foul play. He wants answers. Or again, I think the hope that his little girl is still out there somewhere, that it's like the lady that went missing in Los Angeles from Hawaii who voluntarily went across the Mexico border and eventually returned. I can't remember her name, but that story is out there. But the idea that this is somehow attached to safety in the Dominican Republic, to me, I just don't get it. 11 million people visit this country every year, or have started to. 10, 11 million people over the last 2 years. 21 million visitors, whether they're family members coming back to visit before they go home or they're coming down to go on vacation. When you have, in 2 years, we'll just say, 21 million people go anywhere, you're going to have stories like this. You're going to have stories like the young man who was assaulted by another tourist at a resort recently, the Canadian young man who, from what I've seen, is still recovering. You're going to have stories of people getting ill at a resort and, probably through a set of circumstances, passing as a result of that. You're going to have stories when 21 million people visit a place over 2 years. That's just going to happen. It's sad. You hope it doesn't, but it's going to happen. I think the percentage chance that the implication is true, the implication by probably many in the United States, many in the media, that this young lady's on the beach, now that we know some details, hopefully this implication goes away, but some Dominican or some human trafficker nabbed her and took her away. And that creating a narrative that the Dominican Republic is unsafe from that perspective, as if there is local violence against a tourist. I think that chance is very slim, very slim. And even for those that are concerned about this being some sort of trend, look, I searched. I can't find in recent history a missing persons case like this in the Dominican Republic. I found him in Italy, actually in January 2025, just a month ago or 2 months ago. A young man in Italy was missing. He was found mountain climbing in the snow, deceased. I've seen a story in the United Kingdom. In the past few months, there was the young lady I mentioned that voluntarily went missing in Los Angeles, it looks like, and she since has returned back to the United States. There are missing persons cases of people visiting a place and going missing. It happens. Again, anytime people visit a place, you're going to have stories like this. But as far as the Dominican Republic being safe, this doesn't change my perspective on that. One of the articles I read pointed out very, very clearly that the Dominican Republic has a level 2 travel advisory from the United States, and clearly pointed out what that means. It says on the travel advisory, increased caution is required. It's pretty hard language. When you think about you can go there, but you should be really cautious. And even as late as recently as mid-2024, they used language like violence, kidnappings, so on, which do happen in country, but they happen mostly to citizens of the country. And in terms of human trafficking, unfortunately, it's typically the least wealthy in this society, the poor, people that are already in disadvantaged situations. It's not typically people with means, not typically. I think it's important to point out that Italy, the United Kingdom, Germany, France, Spain, and I believe Portugal, could be wrong on Portugal, also have a level 2 travel advisory from the United States. To me, if you told me you're going to go to Italy and the UK and Germany and Spain and France and Portugal, to me that sounds like a really nice European vacation. I would do that in a heartbeat. I don't think of level 2 travel advisory, increased caution needed. And if I did hear that, I'd say okay, I understand, of course, the US is just saying, hey, just be mindful, you're not in your own country. And that to me is the same, perspective that I think should be had with the Dominican Republic. From what I've seen, there have been massive efforts by local authorities to search for this young lady. If anything, I applaud the local government, the resort. Once they knew of this, they went after it, and they're still going after it right now. They're launching modern technology to try to find her. They're doing all the things you would hope and expect. I would be more angry, or I would be angry at all, not angry at all, at the Dominican Republic in this whole thing if they didn't react in the way that they've reacted. But by all accounts, every article, everything I've seen, they're on a massive search and rescue mission, and there are even search and rescue groups here. In fact, I saw the name of one of them. I can't remember them right now. Something civil. I forget the name of somebody might know them. You can drop it down below for others. That was on scene right away, going after their best efforts to find this young lady, hopefully alive, but we'll see what happens. If anything, there's some dispute over, is it too soon to call her disappearance and drowning and that she's passed? Should there be more investigation done? Should there be more conversations done? I think so. And it sounds like they're having those conversations with the people that were involved, with who they saw on these cameras at 4 a.m, 5 a.m, 10 a.m. It sounds like the conversations are being had. And if there's foul play, I hope they find it. But the The idea that somehow this means that it's unsafe to travel here, that one I can't get on board with. What I can get on board with is praying for this young lady. I can get on board with sharing my emotions, which for many of you, you'll say, I get you. I get the sadness, I get the anger, I get the guilt. For some of you, I'm sure you'll find holes in my words and take offense to it, and that's your prerogative. You do what you gotta do. But hopefully you know where my heart is, my intent is. I just think this is extremely sad. I think it is something that deserves all of the attention it can get. I think she deserves an exhaustive search. I think her family deserves that search as well. And we'll see what the outcome is. I hope that there's a miracle here. I've read, just to get some hope up, I actually asked ChatGPT at one point, have there been situations like this where people were found? And there have been. There have been people recovered, found days later even, alive, maybe, need some hospital care, but they're alive, they're okay. And I really pray and hope that that is the case. That's the happy ending to this story. Right now it doesn't look like it'll be happy. So let's all pray. Let's hope. Let's pray for the return of that little girl. But in the meantime, let's kind of pump the brakes on this being a direct line to some sort of, it's a coincidence that it's in the Dominican Republic. No one's faulting Aruba for Natalee Holloway's disappearance. The young man that was found to have caused that disappearance has been prosecuted. If something like that happened here, I hope they're prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But if it is an accident, if she is safe, if she is found, then we'll know all those details in the coming days. Very somber today. I don't have my normal energy for obvious reasons. But this story is sad, and it made me run through those emotions, and I just felt compelled to share because a lot of people reached out with their thoughts. A lot of people reached out with questions, and I wanted to answer those. But that's where we are. And if there's more news or new news, I'll drop that either in a new video, or you might see it on my community tab, posts tab here on the YouTube channel, or over on Instagram and stories. I hope this helped. I hope this gave you some clarity on the situation, and maybe it helps you process similar emotions to what I'm having right now. But either way, I appreciate you watching, and let's pray for the return of that young lady.